Tarzan's New York Adventure from 1942, also known as Tarzan Against the World, was an enjoyable Tarzan film starring Johnny Weissmuller and Maureen O'Sullivan. Thanks to my friend Aran Erem for encouraging me to check out more Tarzan films. I always have fun watching these and reviewing them, and this one was no exception. I'll talk about the film and then offer some closing thoughts. Well, the film opens up, and we see Tarzan, Jane, and Boy. They're all out for a swim when they spot a plane in the sky passing by, a lot of stock footage on the way, and Tarzan goes to investigate. Now Cheetah, meanwhile, is toying around with some elephants. Hey, cut that out, and wow, check out that disturbing laugh.
Cheetah, now stop that at once.
So two characters arrive from this plane. We have Buck, who's played by actor Charles Bickford, who we can tell right away is going to be the main bad guy of the film, and the character Jimmy, actor Paul Kelly, who I caught not long ago in one of my earlier reviews for The Roaring Twenties with James Cagney. Well, Tarzan swings into town. He's on his jungle trapeze. He arrives and he throws down a knife to disarm Buck, and he tells these guys to leave. Now also with them is Manchester Montford, who's played by actor Chill Wills. You know, one of those epic character actors I've seen in other films, namely John Wayne films like The Alamo. And he tries to be all friendly and understanding with Tarzan, but Tarzan isn't having it. And he says, once the sun comes up, those guys need to be out of there. And then he scurries up a tree and leaves. Well, we cut over to Jane, who's working in the kitchen. She's doing some dishes with her cool Swiss Family Robinson-style water contraption, and then sends Cheetah out to get some plums for breakfast. Plums for his meal. It almost sounds like my diet. Well, Tarzan and Jane talk about the plane, and Tarzan just wants it gone, but Boy seems fascinated by it. Now the next day, Boy, along with Cheetah and a bunch of elephants, well, they go off to visit the plane crew. Now these explorers seem like fascinated that Boy has the ability to command elephants to do tricks. So they start scheming that, maybe they could take him off to a circus act or something like that.
See me, Sharu. See me, Sharu. You're Gaga Wonder.
That kid would be a sensation in the circus.
So evil Buck, he's ready to take this kid away, put him in a circus, but Jimmy, who is also the pilot of the plane, is against it. And he says to Boy, just go, get out of here. So Manchester, meanwhile, goes to check on some of his lion traps, and he gets caught in one himself. Boy runs from a lion and then scares him away with a stick. Cheetah tries to stop the lion, but fails. Now Buck comes along and, oh my goodness, he takes a shot and it looks like he literally kills the lion in the film. I don't know how they did that trick. The thing just flies through the air. Well, in any case, he saves Boy. But soon enough, a group of natives attack. Well, Boy does his call for help, and Tarzan swings into action. And he's swinging along with Jane, and then out of nowhere, one of the natives cuts his vine, and what a fall. So Tarzan and Jane have fallen to the ground, and it's not enough that they lay there injured. The natives then move in and set fire to the brush around them. Now Buck and the guys, they tell Boy, hey, it's too late for Tarzan, he's a goner, so they grab him, load him into the plane to fly away and escape the natives. Now Cheetah, meanwhile, swings into action to rescue Tarzan and Jane. They climb away from the fire, and Cheetah tells Tarzan, in his language, that Boy has been taken. So Tarzan and Jane are going to set off to go to civilization, to go and rescue Boy. But Jane gives him that dire warning of the danger and basically offers to lead the way. And that makes sense, actually. Remember, Jane used to live in normal civilization, so it only makes sense that she kind of takes the lead on talking to people and stuff like that. So they arrive at a local city and arrange for a flight with the portmaster, who is played by actor Miles Mander. Caught him not long ago in the film The Tower of London, and they offer him some gold for their flight. They also get into some normal clothing, and while they are there at the tailor, hey, it's Willie Fung. I think he's a very funny character. I actually watched him recently in Meet the Stewarts with William Holden. Anyhow, There's a lot of silliness as Tarzan, he's so big, he keeps ripping his clothes. So they're trying to figure out, how to get him some custom clothes in time. So they're measuring him. And once they are all outfitted, they take off in one of those big transoceanic airplanes, kind of like the one Indiana Jones traveled in. I don't think it's the exact same one, but correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And soon they arrive in New York. They arrive and they get their visitor permits. And Cheetah is there to do some silliness right away, trying to drink out of a glass water cooler. Silly character. Well, they find out where the pilot, Jimmy Shields, is, and they plan to go after him. And there's more goofiness as Tarzan and Jane get into a cab, and Cheetah starts playing with the radio. One of the things I noticed while watching this film is Cheetah is very prominent in this film. I guess they were just trying to capitalize on the silly antics that Cheetah would do, playing with radios and stuff like that. And even Tarzan is baffled by the radio and all of these strange technologies of civilization. It's classic fish out of water stuff, but I love it. They arrive at the hotel and ask about Jimmy Shields, but the hotel clerk, Hobart Cavanaugh, who's this great nervous-looking actor from these old films, tells them that he hasn't been there. So they get to their room, and they find out from the bellboy that Jimmy should be back, but they also find out that his girlfriend is a singer at Club Moonbeam. So Jane talks to the janitor at this club, Mantan Moreland, who's one of these awesome actors from a ton of old films. He used to play the chauffeur from several Charlie Chan films, but he's also in the film King of the Zombies that I actually have on my list. It's from 1941. It's one of those silly monster films that I'm probably going to review upcoming. Tarzan, meanwhile, discovers a shower and steps in, fully clothed, of course. And Cheetah, meanwhile, discovers this container of hand lotion and alcohol from Jane's bag and starts just eating and drinking all of it. And then Cheetah starts acting like a total goof, putting on clothing, hopping around the room, rolling on the floor, licking a mirror, basically just goes crazy. This goes on for about 3 or 4 minutes, and I can't help but wonder, what did that room smell like? Whew, spilled lotion, makeup powder, and chimpanzee. Anyhow, Tarzan got out of the shower, he got his suit all fixed up, and he and Jane finally leave. But they're going to leave Cheetah behind, and he tells Cheetah, Aguna, and they leave. But Cheetah, crafty thing, climbs out the window and climbs down and hops on their cab. And off they go. And Tarzan, when they get to this club, he says, smells like a Swahili swamp. Why people stay? Honestly, I went to New York City several years ago, and that was honestly my opinion as well. But hey, they get to this club, and they talk to singer Connie. It's played by lovely actress Virginia Gray. And from her, we find out that boy had actually been picked up by immigration, and bond was paid by some circus guy. But their discussion is interrupted with some screams as, you could expect, Cheetah is causing mischief in the background by throwing hats around the room. Well, we cut to the circus, and there's Boy talking with an elephant. The main character, Buck, has taken him captive. Now, he and Colonel Ralph Sargent, actor Cy Kendall, plan on selling him off to another circus show in Rio de Janeiro for $100,000. But soon Tarzan and Jane show up, asking where is Boy. The baddies draw a gun on Tarzan, and they plan to escape. But Cheetah arrives just in time, and Tarzan gives Cheetah a command to smack the guy, basically. So they make a run for it, and as they leave, a mob has gathered. And I was expecting a big Tarzan fistfight here. But no, at just the right time, a police car arrives, breaks it up, and Jimmy's there with them to help. We find out that Sargent apparently has the rights to Boy, but Jimmy tells Tarzan that they need to go to the law to get this resolved. It's going to be a court drama now, and soon we find Tarzan and Jane in court. Well, Tarzan takes a stand first and gives a decent testimony that, Boy has a good life out in the jungle, and the judge really seems convinced. But then the evil attorney approaches, and hey, the evil lawyer is played by Charles Lane of Petticoat Junction fame. I love it. He was that goofy guy that was always trying to shut down the cannonball. And he's just as rotten here. He plays the character Gould Beaton, who's sort of the attacking attorney. And by the way, when you watch the film, look at how massive Johnny Weissmuller as an actor appears next to him. I mean, the guy was huge in real life. Well, the judge talks to Tarzan, and he's asking, how's the fishing down there? So we know things maybe aren't too serious just yet. The judge was played here by Russell Hicks, who I've seen before in films like Sergeant York. Well, Jane takes a stand, and during the evil lawyer's questioning, we find out that Boy was actually adopted when they found him in the jungle. So Beaton goes in for the kill with the questioning, and Tarzan's not having it anymore.
You lied.
I did not.
And he lied.
What are you?
Steal Boy from the sky.
Stop it, darling. Don't.
Well, Jane comforts a discouraged Tarzan, and Tarzan, well, he's going to take things into his own hands, and crash, out the window he goes. And then we get into kind of a sequence of, I thought, some pretty cool special effects and action scenes, basically, as Tarzan moves across the rooftops of New York City. You know, he climbs up the side of a building, makes it to the roof, and there's this chase scene as the police are pursuing him. He goes swinging on a rope, swinging on a ladder, and then when he's cornered on the Brooklyn Bridge, he does this awesome dive into the water.
He can't make it and live.
The bad guys, meanwhile, are ready to clear out of town. They head to the circus to grab Boy, but he manages to climb up very high to escape their grasp. And you know what? With only a few minutes left of this film, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but will Tarzan make it in time? Will he and Jane rescue Boy and be able to return to their jungle home? Well, you're going to have to watch this exciting film for yourself to see. So just some closing thoughts. Tarzan's New York Adventure was produced by MGM and directed by Richard Thorpe. I really enjoyed this one, and it was pretty much everything I expected. You know, it's basically a fish out of water story with Tarzan and Cheetah and Jane and all of their antics in the city. These kinds of films, they're always a treat to me. You know, be it the formula of like Crocodile Dundee or even George of the Jungle. You know, it's the action hero from the wild wilderness adapting to life in the city and all the crazy stuff that happens. Johnny Weissmuller was in his late 30s for this film, and I think he still looks in great condition, and he did many of his own stunts here, including the city rooftop escape and his trip up the Brooklyn Bridge, and some of the stunts were done by stuntman Paul Stader. But it should be noted that when Tarzan jumps off the Brooklyn Bridge, that was actually done with a dummy that was slid down on some cables from a tower into a studio water tank. I mean, still, I thought it looked fine, as did all the stunts of the film. This film was the last MGM Tarzan film before the series was going to be handed over to RKO. Johnny Weissmuller would stay on to do a few more Tarzan films like Tarzan Triumphs in 1943 and Tarzan's Desert Mystery. But this was the last film for Maureen O'Sullivan as Jane. She decided to devote more of her time to parenting. By the way, one of her many children was a daughter, actress Mia Farrow, which I didn't know. That was kind of cool. So that's just kind of my final thoughts of the film. And, you know, I enjoy Tarzan films a great deal. And in a way, I really respect, you know, what Tarzan has going on. He's in the jungle. He's swinging around all day, eating fresh fruit. He's got a gorgeous wife, and he can talk to animals. And he occasionally goes off on an adventure or two. And reflecting on this, you know, I look at this from the perspective of my boring life as a software system analyst. And there's just so much I admire about Tarzan. He's got it going on. As Ray Stevens put it so succinctly, he's free as a breeze, he's always at ease. He lives in the jungle and hangs by his knees as he swings through the trees without a trapeze in his BVDs. Yeah, Tarzan's got it good. And that's my review of Tarzan's New York Adventure. It's a fun film. It's one worth checking out.